Almost 2 years ago, I took a look at DK Jungle Climber for the Nintendo DS. I thought it was a good game as it took an original concept, added a lot of creativity and made something fun. It only seems appropriate that I also review the first game in the short-lived series, DK King of Swing for the Game Boy Advance. I did have a long introduction written for this review, and then I rewatched my original Jungle Climber review and realised that the introductions would have been extremely similar. So instead I'll just summarise. DK is a well-known platforming icon but lacked direction once Rare left the franchise and before Retro Studios took over. This led to games like DK King of Swing coming out that one hit, but it may have been good, I don't know, no one played it? Let's just take a look at the game. DK King of Swing keeps it simple in terms of plot and setting. DK and Cranky are planning a Jungle Jam, which is a competition for all the animals in DK's world. While talking about how nice and shiny all the medals for the competition are, King K. Rool swoops in and steals them. DK then gives chase to get them back, and that's it for the story. I would sound rather silly if I started complaining about the story, so instead I'll complain about the style of the game. All the characters and enemies are taken straight out of the Donkey Kong Country series, but this game does not use the same distinct DKC graphical style. There's nothing wrong with trying to give your game its own unique feel, but everything looks very bland. It's not an ugly game by any means, but they took away the DKC look and feel and replaced it with a more generic, colourful but ultimately forgettable style. The game takes so much from the Donkey Kong Country series, such as characters, enemies and the majority of the music, that it's a little weird that it doesn't also try to replicate the art style. This is something that was changed in the sequel DK Jungle Climber, but for King of Swing, if they wanted to give DK a more cartoonish look, then they probably shouldn't borrowed so many assets from Donkey Kong Country. It's hard to put DK King of Swing into a genre of games. The closest you can get is that it's a puzzle platformer. This is due to the unique control scheme, which is heavily inspired by a NES game called Clu Clu Land. Instead of levels being filled with platforms that you can jump across, there are instead pegs floating everywhere that DK can grab onto. You grab onto pegs with DK's left hand with the L button and his right hand with the R button. Whenever you grab onto a peg with one hand, DK starts spinning. If you let go of the peg, DK will then fly forward in the direction he is facing due to the momentum achieved while spinning. By coordinating DK's left and right hands, you must gain height and climb your way to the end of the stage. You can't attack enemies by jumping on them, so instead you can charge up by holding onto two pegs at the same time and launch yourself into them. The same control problems that were present for Jungle Climber are present for this game. First of all, you have very little control over DK when he's falling. Pushing left to right does not move DK anywhere near enough, so you can't be precise about where you land. I don't understand this design choice, as the skill of this game comes from coordinating yourself properly and being patient. If you're falling, then it means that you made a mistake, but the game doesn't allow you to make up for your mistake by aiming yourself for a lower peg so you can recover to some extent. If you mess up in this game by missing a peg or getting hit by an enemy and start falling, you're annoyed as you made a mistake, but that's all part of the challenge. Missing a lower peg that you try and grab onto to save yourself a bit of time when climbing up, only to miss it and fall into a bottomless pit, just causes frustration. Something else that can also cause frustration is that it's very difficult to perform basic tasks and actions. So you'll be climbing up and you see an enemy nearby, so you decide to take him out so you don't have to try and avoid him. In any other game you would run over, jump on it and just move on. In DK King of Swing, it can take a long time to defeat an enemy that won't even have a complex movement pattern. You have to climb into the correct position, charge up your attack and make sure you time it right. If you get hit instead of killing them, it can be annoying due to just how simple the task is. The enemy will be right there, not really doing much, and you still can't get the job done. To be clear, this isn't a proper complaint about the game, as not being able to do the simple things is what makes the gameplay interesting. At first it feels weird and unnecessary, the controls, but after a few levels you learn all the little tricks such as how to travel quickly and get around the limitations. It is fun to play when you establish a rhythm, but expect there to be frustrations along the way. As all movement is handled by the L and R buttons, as well as the D-pad if you want, the B and A buttons are used for power-ups. If you press B, you restore 1 heart of health, and if you press A, you become invincible for a short time and are able to launch yourself further forward. To do either of these, you need to collect bananas that are scattered everywhere in levels. At first I didn't give these power-ups much thought. You naturally collect bananas as you play, and it was nice to be able to heal as well as using the invincibilities to get past tougher sections. Further into the game though, I realised that the bananas almost break the game. As there are hidden collectibles and bonus challenges to be found, you are allowed to replay levels. Whenever you beat a level, you keep the bananas you find, which means that you can keep playing the same level over and over and collect as many bananas as you want. There's no limit on how many bananas you can carry, or at least I never reached it, so you can stock up on bananas and just burn through levels by repeatedly making yourself invincible or healing. The first level of the final world is a short, easy level that gives you a lot of bananas each time you play it. This made the last world the easiest one, as all I had to do was replay the first level a few times, made sure I had enough bananas, and then I never had to worry about taking damage. It's very strange to play a Donkey Kong game that you can beat by grinding. It doesn't ruin the game though, as being invincible doesn't assist with timing jumps and grabbing onto the correct pegs, but it makes the challenge here feel muddled and inconsistent. I praise DK Jungle Climber for being creative, but I can't say the same for King of Swing. There's enough variation so you won't be bored, but it sticks to a few different gameplay gimmicks and never really mixes things up like its sequel. Sometimes you have to throw rock or bombs while spinning, and you might have to deal with things such as icy pegs that don't have enough friction, but it's not a game that surprises you. I will forgive it as it is the first game in the series, but this is a very simple game. The game throws at you some levels using the unique movement mechanics, and that's it. The game took me around 3 hours to beat, and that's on my first playthrough. There's only 5 worlds, so if you've played it before you could easily beat it in under 2. In a sense, this makes the game feel like a demo for Jungle Climber. Being short but also being original also fits handheld games very well, so I didn't feel too let down by the short length. There are also extra modes outside of the main one, so it's possible you could play the game extensively, but it's unlikely. I may have been negative in this review, but DK King of Swing is still a pretty fun game. It takes a different spin on puzzle and platform games, and it is interesting to play. The controls definitely could have been improved, and due to the short nature of the game and lack of a distinctive art style, it's an experience that you could easily forget. I would recommend playing DK Jungle Climber and skipping out on King of Swing, as Jungle Climber feels like the fully realised version of this game. My score is 5.5 out of 10. It's something different that can be enjoyed, but it feels too basic and limited to be anything special.